By whom?
You don't know.
We're being
Okay,
recorded
so-
more than we know, Carol.
Yeah, so then Michael will speak about endorsements and voting. Then we got some more announcement type things, and then we'll hear from the delegates. So we're everybody ready to go? If you're not, too bad. Here we go. Our first speaker is one of the candidates for District 18, and it's Victor Aguilar. He could only be here for a short time, and then somebody else is going to fill in for him. So I'm going to have each one of the candidates introduce themselves. And so, Victor, you ready?
I am, Carol.
Okay, go for it. We're happy to have you here.
Thank you so much for having me, and thank you so much, Our Revolution, and thank you for the good energy and the union songs. I'm, born and raised in a union household. I was part of Local 5 Unite here. I am a progressive. When I was on the city council and I ran, I was endorsed by Our Revolution. My name is Victor Aguilar. I am the vice mayor, proud son of immigrants from Mexico, and the first openly gay person elected to the San Leandro City Council. I have dedicated my life to serving those most in need in my community.
You're muted.
Now he got muted.
Okay.
Where muted at?
You serve your community. That's where we got left off.
I have dedicated my life to serving those most in need in my community. Today, I am running for the California State Assembly to fight for healthcare, housing, and justice for all. We need single-payer healthcare with expanded mental health services and funding to keep our public hospitals open. We need safe and affordable housing for all, including strong statewide protections for renters and permanent housing for persons experiencing homelessness. And we need justice for all. This includes racial justice. We must confront and root out racism in law enforcement and the criminal justice system and throughout society. Economic justice. We must provide free universal preschool and other programs that enable parents to work and build pathways out of poverty. And climate and environmental justice. Climate change threatens all of us, but is most damaging to the communities of color and the economically disadvantaged. I would be a passionate and fearless champion for bold changes such as reinvesting in education, reimagining public safety, and fighting for higher wages. Changes that will make real positive impacts for the people of Oakland, Alameda, San Leandro, and our beautiful state of California. I would be honored to have your support and serve you all in Sacramento. Thank you so much. Jay Bartel will be here to answer any questions that you may have. I have to board a flight back up to the Bay Area. For most of you that don't know, my mom passed away from COVID and I was here in LA to say goodbye to her. So I have to go back to the Bay Area and I will be there. So you are in good hands. If you have any questions, please, if Jay can't answer them, my personal cell phone number is 808-224-6228, or I can be reached at Victor Aguilar for assembly@gmail.com. I'll put that in the chat. Thank you, Carol, and thank you, Our Revolution, for having me here. You guys make me proud, and look forward to working closer with you. And if you have any questions, please email me or ask Jay. Thank you so much.
Okay, Victor, thank you so much. Is he here yet?
He is.
Yeah,
Okay,
I'm here.
then,
Hi.
where is he? Okay, are you ready to go and answer
Can I ask a
questions?
question before he leaves?
Go for it real quick.
Hey, Victor, are you a property owner? Do you own rental property? And what's your stance on Costa Hawkins?
Hi, is this Paula La Verde?
Yes, it is. Paola La Verde, yes.
Hi, Paula. No, I am not a landlord. I do not own any rental property, and I do support Costa Hawkins. We need to repeal that and make sure that we take care of our tenants. I've been a staunch advocate here in San Leandro and making sure that we have tenant protections for our mobile home park owners, and I'm working towards tenant protections for our city of San Leandro.
Before folks go into more Costa Hawkins and LSAC reform, Victor already we have that in the written questionnaire. Victor had great answers on that, so I don't want folks to ask him questions that are technically redundant. He has a limited amount of time.
Okay, Victor.
No, this is a good thing for us. I'm sorry, but point of information, I think this is information that should be said publicly. And this is a question we should be asking so everybody knows it. I haven't had a chance to read the questionnaire. Thank
You will have a chance. You're not going to vote today. You will have a chance to read
Okay,
it.
thank you. Thank you.
I'd like to ask Victor something. Victor, so I have two questions. One of these is just a binary yes/no question because you accidentally left it blank on the questionnaire. So I just want to get your answer. Do you support the either legalization or decriminalization of all drugs?
Yes, I'm actually working with Scott Wiener. I have advocated with Senate Bill 519 for the decriminalization of ethnogens, and I am working towards bringing that up in our municipality in San Leandro.
All right, thank you. And then the other question I have is, so in the United States, in the Bay Area as a whole, and in Oakland specifically, which constitutes most of the district, there are more vacant homes than homeless individuals. Is our housing crisis a crisis of total supply, or is it a crisis caused by lack of affordable housing?
It's a cause of both. Lack of affordable housing. I mean, we have affordable housing in San Leandro. I know there's affordable housing in Oakland and Alameda. There's empty apartment complexes that are empty buildings that are sitting and rooms sitting available. We need to build more. We need to make sure that we're also making more affordable housing here in San Leandro. We've met our threshold, and I'm pushing to build more. The more affordable housing, the less gentrification we have, and we can keep our people in our communities where they belong. We need to preserve our communities and not have what's happening in the Mission where the Latinos are moving out, people of color. We need to preserve that and preserve our beautiful cities of Oakland, Alameda, and San Leandro.
Okay, great.
It looks like Kabir also has a question.
Okay, Victor, how much longer can you speak? Because I know you're on a schedule.
I have 5 more minutes.
Oh, okay.
Mine's a quick question. Are you supporting anyone in the Alameda District Attorney's race?
Yes, I am supporting Pamela Price. I've been public about that. She has my endorsement.
What about for sheriff?
I am supporting her counterpart Walker for the race as well.
I'd like to interject something here. If you're not speaking, please mute yourself and then unmute when you get called on. Thank you. Okay, do we have any other questions for Victor or comments? Okay, go get on that plane. And
Well,
we'll be in touch
so
with
much.
you.
Thank you so much, Our Revolution, and Carol, for having me here. If there's anything that you need, you have any questions, just please go ahead and reach out to me. I will put my phone number and my email in the chat. I am easily accessible and do return phone calls at very personable. So if there's anything that I haven't answered, please, you can go ahead and do that. Thank you so much. And I will be back in the Bay shortly.
Okay.
Have a safe flight.
Thank you.
Okay, let me see who is next here.
Carol, while you're looking, I want to say I want to turn members to those questionnaires because they are very rich with information, but I also don't want anyone to feel like they shouldn't ask a question if something comes to mind during this process or would like to hear it personally articulated by the candidate because it's an issue of passion or importance.
Well, we're trying to hold
you.
questions until the end if we can.
Yeah, no, it's fine. And timing, guys, go ahead and run that. I don't want to make people nervous about asking a question because they don't know if it was included in the questionnaire or they didn't review the question.
The
I'm so sorry.
questionnaires are still being received and they will be posted in a few days. I'm not sure how many days, and people will be able to look at all of them before they vote. And Michael will fill you in on that in a little bit.
I'm so sorry if I implied anybody shouldn't ask a question. I was just worried that we were going to be tighter on time.
You are loved, Matthew. It's all good.
And Paula's property owning question was not asked.
Okay, so it's a good thing she got to ask it. Okay, and if you'd like, you can ask it of everybody. Okay, so the next person that we're going to have here speaking is Janani Ramachandran, and I hope I'm saying your name right.
It was pretty close. It's Janani Ramachandran.
Okay, well, welcome. We're happy to meet you. And if you'd introduce yourself and
Yeah. California does not need just another corporate Democrat. We need a bold leader who is willing to fight for true progressive reforms and stand up to corporate power. My name is Janani Ramachandran. I'm an East Bay native, a social justice attorney, and a former home visiting community health worker, and I promise to fight for us. My grandparents immigrated to this country from a small South Indian village without a dollar or degree, just a dream to give their kids a better life than they had. And thanks to the strength of their labor unions, they were able to lift our family out of poverty and gain economic stability, quality health care, a stable pension. But that so-called American dream does not exist anymore. 50% of Californian families living in poverty work a full-time job. 30% of Californians do not have real health care. 3 million cannot afford to pay rent next month. Greed and capitalist power have drowned out their voices, and it is time to reclaim our voices and our power. Which is why I'm not just saying things like healthcare is a human right or housing is a human right. I am fighting for real change starting now, starting with a $22 minimum wage by 2022. I'm fighting for more affordable housing and stronger statewide tenant protections, starting with the repeal of Costa-Hawkins and the Ellis Act, both of which I've already been doing the work as a tenants' rights lawyer and as an activist. I'm fighting for a more equitable justice system, starting by ending qualified immunity for cops who cause harm, and investing in restorative justice and community violence interventions, like the 3 I've worked for right here in the district, including APTP's MH First program. Fourth, I'm fighting for Medicare for all, because as a former community health worker myself, I understand and have seen the life-saving value of preventative care. And finally, I'm fighting for a Green New Deal with the racial equity lens so that the communities most impacted by decades of toxic pollution and extractive industries can have the sustainable future that they deserve. To do these things, we don't need just another Democrat. We need a fighter, something I've been all my life. As a lesbian South Asian, I've fought among my own communities to assert that I have a right to exist. I've fought to be the youngest person appointed to the City of Oakland Public Ethics Commission, the youngest person appointed to the California State Commission on API affairs, and the first woman of color to be appointed to the 3 nonprofit boards that I sit on. But it's not these titles that will make me a bold legislator. It is the communities that I've worked with whose voices have been silenced, drowned out by politicians too scared to push for change because of the power of big corporate dollars. What drives me are all of the immigrant mothers I've worked with experiencing domestic violence and homelessness. What drives me is seeing victims of abuse criminalized by our so-called justice system, ripped apart by CPS and ICE. What drives me are all the individuals I've worked with experiencing mental health crisis who have been failed by our existing public health systems. What drives me are all the elderly tenants in Oakland I've represented from being evicted from their homes, even in the middle of the pandemic. And what drives me is when I fought alongside movements to have stronger eviction moratoriums, and when I told the stories of pain of our supposedly progressive lawmakers, what drives me is the fact that their answer was a resounding, "That's sad, but no, we're not going to try to do anything about it." Isn't that your job? to respond to the needs of our most vulnerable community members? The policy reforms that I am fighting to implement are not far off dreams. Thousands of individuals have already signed on to my campaign's $22 minimum wage petitions. I am in the streets every day talking to constituents, understanding why they want a living wage and how that would change their lives. I'm listening to voters to ask them why universal health care wouldn't impact their life, why they believe we needed a wealth tax. Voters in the 18th Assembly District are ready for a bold, progressive leader. The various groups who have endorsed me, like Oakland Tenants Union and the longshoremen of ILWU, know that I am going to fight for this progressive change. And my campaign's been showing it, raising over $150,000 without a dime of corporate money so far. I will not stop fighting until the power of people are monumentally stronger than the power of corporations and the ugly forces of capitalism. But I cannot do it alone. And I am asking for your support in building this movement because together we can make it happen. Thank you.
Okay, thank you very much. We're going to open questioning now. If you want to ask a question, raise your hand and unmute yourself.
Looks like there's someone in the chat already.
Pardon?
Looks like there's someone in the chat that asked, how would you support AB 1400 CalCare? Bonta was not a co-sponsor.
Yeah. I have been a huge advocate for CalCare. I've showed up to the rallies that we've had in Oakland. I've started a Medicare for All petition on my campaign website. And the reality is that AB 1400 didn't become a 2-year bill because we couldn't actually figure out a funding source. It was a pure lack of political will to get it done. Unfortunately, there were too many lawmakers who wanted to look favorable because, as we know, universal healthcare polls very well. The majority of Californians, the overwhelming majority of Californians are ready for Medicare for All. But there are excuses about the fact that it was just too hard to implement, that we couldn't find the funding source. We can choose to find the funding sources for things we truly care about. And there's no better time than now, than in hopefully the end of this pandemic, where we can rally enough people to understand the value of universal health care and actually get it passed next year. And I vow to do that.
Cool. Looks like Matthew, you got a question?
Yeah, I have the same question I asked Victor. I'm gonna ask everybody this. So in the United States, in the Bay Area as a whole, and in Oakland specifically, which makes up most of the district, there are more vacant homes than there are homeless individuals. Is our housing crisis really a crisis of total supply of housing, or of a crisis of how much affordable housing is available?
To me, it's about affordable housing and the lack of interest in keeping people in their homes. There are the number of real estate lawyer articles I've seen during this pandemic that are trying to show landlords how to leave their property vacant in the middle of the pandemic is disgusting. There are so many articles out there saying that it's better to have a vacant property than a tenant in the middle of a pandemic who can't pay rent. It's that attitude that's preventing us from keeping people housed. Yes, there's a shortage of housing. We need to produce at least 250,000 units a year to reach our RENA goals, and that is important too. But I fundamentally believe that the root of our housing crisis is about the interest in keeping people housed and actual affordable housing from being built, which is why, in addition to repealing Costa-Hawkins and the Ellis Act, I would fight for a right to counsel so that every tenant experiencing eviction would have the opportunity to have a free lawyer, because it is unfair that 90% of landlords are represented by counsel, but 90% of tenants are not. I would also fight to fund social housing programs, because the reality is the market is not doing enough and probably won't ever do enough to build housing that's truly affordable.
Okay, thank you. Are there other questions or comments?
Looks like Kabir has a question.
Okay, and then Paola has a question. Kabir?
Yeah, hi Johnny. Are you supporting anyone in the Alameda District Attorney's race?
Yes, I'm supporting Pamela Price and Joanne Walker for sheriff.
Thanks.
We are too.
Shirley has a question, Carl.
Okay, I think Paola was next.
Yeah, mine is going to also be always the same question. Hey, there, Janina, can you talk to us? I know that you're against repealing Costa-Hawkins. That's fabulous. Are you a property owner?
I am not a property owner. I am a tenant. And if elected, I would be one of 3 tenants in our entire state legislature out of 120 lawmakers.
Thank you. Thank you very much.
Yeah, Shirley, go ahead. Shirley had a question.
Thank you. Yeah, yesterday at the luncheon during the convention, Kevin De Leon described his plan for 25,000 housing units for people who are currently unhoused in his city of LA. And I don't know if you heard that or not, but do you think having a target date for creating a certain number of housing units is something that you could set?
I think we could set it, and we actually have set them through a regional housing needs assessment. But the fact is that jurisdictions are choosing not to follow them. I also worry that if we push housing construction too quickly, that we're going to have real estate contractors that don't hire unionized labor, that the contracts go towards the big corporations that are most mobilized to bid on contracts faster rather than local POC-owned construction companies that hire union labor, for example. So I think it's something worth exploring, but it would not be my priority. And I would want to explore all of the possible pitfalls before blanket implementing a date like that.
Thank you.
Yeah, my question is pretty much in the same lines of the housing. I was wondering if you would be for or opposed to a public real estate developer / general contractor agencies for municipalities that can also work with their community land trusts, and also an anti-usury tax on the number of homes owned in a certain boundary.
Yeah, absolutely. I would be in support of all those things. And I think social housing programs along the lines of the bill that's been introduced would do some of that. But the last thing you mentioned about the tax is especially interesting and speaks to the fact that, owning property is a business, the same way owning a small business is a business. You take risks, and we don't need to prioritize the rights of landlords and hold them in such high regard in the way that we don't for other small businesses. And, you take a risk and you make choices. But yeah, I support all 3 of those things.
I think Coach, you had a question?
Yeah.
If I unmute, I do. So that's an impressive stump, by the way, and it's just an impressive list of accomplishments. So I enjoyed listening to you speak and your message. I will say that I'm always interested in people's strategy to win. We got qualified candidates and want to kind of have an idea of it's a great stump. And the message is clear, but what's your strategy to win? And what do you see as sort of so much, right? I love how you covered the broad topic and you're actually involved and invested in so much, but low hanging fruit, or what's first 100 days, what do you see that we can do and should do first and foremost in California? Low hanging fruit that we can do. And, I see your passion in affordable housing. What can we pull off besides some of the other basic things we've already talked about?
Yeah, the first low-hanging fruit and most immediate need to me is passing a stronger eviction moratorium and also a moratorium on foreclosures. I was not happy with AB 3088 because throughout the pandemic, I have worked with tenants who are being evicted during the pandemic. And it pained me to hear every single time someone called my legal aid office saying, I'm being evicted. I'm a survivor of violence. I have elders in my house. I have children with disabilities. And it would pain me to tell them, I'm sorry, you are one of the hundreds of thousands of people who can be legally evicted during this pandemic. That was under AB 3088, and that's under SB 91 now. We have too many loopholes, and SB 91 does not protect tenants from being evicted in the very near future. This is about to expire, and we need to extend it and provide true rental relief. Too many tenants are being left, are falling through the cracks with our rental relief system. There are not enough protections for tenants. Landlords are allowed to legally make the choice between evicting tenants or accepting 80% of rental debt, and many landlords are making the choice to evict their tenants instead. Why? Corporate greed. If you get to kick out long-term rent-controlled tenants, you can easily find someone willing to pay market rate housing. This isn't about rent relief for landlords. This is about being able to charge higher rents, which is unacceptable. So I believe we need a true eviction moratorium and a better administered rent relief program. I mean, we were given about $2.6 billion from the federal government. We had choices as to how we administered that money, and our choices was yet again to favor landlords. And the second part of your question about my plan to win, the 18th district is one of the most progressive districts in California. The majority of voters support Medicare for all, support a living wage, ban on fracking, ending mass incarceration. And my plan to win is to harness these energies and to offer voters what they want to see. It's not saying, yes, I theoretically believe healthcare is a human right or housing is a human right, but I am showing to voters that I'm going to enact immediate, bold policy changes to make that happen. And I don't care how unpopular that makes me with the Business Roundtable, with the Chamber of Commerce, with insurance companies, with real estate developers, because I'm not taking money from any of them. And my campaign is showing results. I am out every single day talking to voters in communities with people who have told me, politicians have never come to our side of town before, or have never come to our market before. I like what you're saying. No one's, the question people are asking me is, what will you do to change our immediate futures? What will you do to support us while we come out of this pandemic and move into hopefully an equitable future that works for everyone? And showing policies like the $22 minimum wage, having over 1,000 people sign that petition, sign the Medicare for All petition, is engaging voters in this district, is going to encourage people to show up to vote, because we know voter turnout can be low. But the fact that I'm talking to people who have not been yet engaged with our political system, most people I talk to don't even know there's a special election. And, the work we're doing now, the work my campaign is doing now, talking to voters every single day, is how I'm going to win.
Okay, the next person with the question is Matthew Lewis.
Yeah, so I just want to say, I'm going to preface this with tentative, if this were a ranked choice election, I tentatively think that you would probably be my top choice. But but there's something that goes on in the back of my mind, which is you're not the only, we're not doing it's not a ranked choice election. You're not, for instance, the only candidate running on a $22 minimum wage who's speaking with us today. And one thing that worries me is viability because of how top two works. And so notwithstanding that, like, for instance, you have received the Oakland Tenants Union endorsement, I've seen. But like what matters to me a bit is, because you're not an elected official, there are everybody else in this race is elected officials, and there are folks running on similar platforms to you. What do you think distinguishes you from the other, like, non-establishment candidates? And it makes you like sufficiently viable that we should pick you if given how top two unfortunately works. Yeah, it's exactly that I'm not part of the system, and people are tired of political leaders. People are ready for change. If you're happy with the way government works right now, then yes, you should choose to support candidates that have been in government and are continuing to push the policies that are not working for most of us. But if you're ready for an agent of change who has the viability to make it happen, who is collecting thousands of signatures on campaign petitions already, who is talking to voters every single day, then you should absolutely take a risk on someone like me.
Bernie Sanders would have been president by now if we had chose to believe in the progressive with radical ideas. But the fact is, it took us a long time to even get here. And if we start believing in the people who are showing that they have results, then we're going to get to seeing the policies we want faster.
Steve, were you raising your hand again?
I was just a thumbs up.
Oh, okay. Anybody else like to ask a question? Okay, Rusko.
Hi, what's your position on AB 279?
Sorry, 27 what?
AB 279.
Is that the one about care facilities?
Yes.
Yes, I support it wholeheartedly. I think that, we are going to be entering into, a post-pandemic recovery period, and we need places that serve our elders and our medically vulnerable populations wholeheartedly.
Thank you.
Okay, thank you. Next question is from Sherry Johansson.
Hi, Tanny. I really, really, really like everything you say. I love your enthusiasm, but in our reality world, you're up against some really tough competition. And unfortunately, until we have election reform, money talks. Do you have plans for fundraising and how you're going to kind of overcome that deficit?
Yeah, I've raised about $150,000 so far, and I was the first candidate to hit raising $100,000 in the first 3 weeks of campaigning. And, at this rate, I can certainly raise over $300,000 by the time the election hits. And my plan is to continue fundraising. It's not a side of the campaign that I enjoy, but it's something that's working. And the reason why I've been able to get so many donors is because people believe in my vision. People are ready for something that's different, for someone who brings a fresh perspective. And my perspective is not only idealism. It's driven by stories of individuals that I've worked with, and it's driven also by my understanding of the law. I'm never an advocate for more lawyers in our government, but the reality is all the lawyers that are sitting in government have never been inside a family courtroom, have never been inside an eviction courtroom. And my understanding of the combination of how these inequitable systems impact individuals, plus my understanding of how we can write laws that actually work, how we can create enforceable statutes is going to make me an impactful policymaker. And is driving people to continue to support and invest in my campaign, which I'm very, very grateful for.
I have a question. You mentioned that you've raised, I think you said $150,000, which I think is quite great at this point in the game. Who donated? Organizations, individuals? Could you tell us a little about that?
Yeah, only individuals have donated to my campaign. I'm not accepting corporate money. I've actively rejected a couple of corporate checks. I'm not accepting money from executives of oil and gas industry, big pharma, police unions, prison guard unions, real estate developers. Everyone's an individual who's contributed. And the more I reach out to individuals in this campaign, the more people are excited to support and donate. There are, my fight for a $22 minimum wage, a lot of people have donated $22 and are ready to invest in what they see as a future that's going to help them and their communities.
Okay. Would somebody else like to ask a question or make a comment?
I would just say, Carol, and for both candidates so far and for everyone, if they put their website address and/or donate addresses if people are inspired during this meeting.
Yeah,
it's
put that
often
in the
a time
chat,
where
please.
I donate to multiple candidates who we talk to when we do these meetings. So it's it's nice to have that button and that link right there available too.
Yeah. So if you could add that before you leave, so people will know how to donate to you. Okay.
Question. Hello.
Yeah. Hi, Joaquin.
Oh, yeah, I don't know how you asked a question, but I just unmuted myself, so I guess it works that way. Hey, I was a small business in a cooperative for many, many years, and I still have a small business, but the 22 an hour seems a little, you know, setting yourself up for people to attack you, because I don't know what the, you know, current, I'm retired, so I'm not really up on the cost of living, but, you know, after 40 years, we were barely able to pay $20 an hour at a union, in a union scale. So I'm not sure how, you know, wise that is to, you know, jack it up to $22 an hour from 15 an hour. And then I wonder if you have any ideas on how we could tax all these rich people that live in the Bay Area. Is there any, in Oakland, is there any way to institute more taxes on really rich people?
Yeah, as far as the $22 minimum wage goes, if wages had increased at the rate of productivity and inflation since the 60s, we wouldn't just be at a $22 minimum wage. We would be at a national $23 minimum wage. That's not even taking into account California. So the fact is that we've been stuck. Wages have remained flat because that's been an active choice of corporations. That has been an active choice for big corporations that employ the majority of minimum wage workers to be able to gain massive profits and become billionaires. The whole concept of becoming a billionaire while your workers are making minimum wage that's completely insufficient has allowed us to keep the minimum wage flat. While wages have remained flat, California cost of living has increased. California home prices have increased by about 70% in the past decade. And taxpayers are the ones subsidizing these low wages. When you sign up to work a job at Walmart, they hand you a food stamp application so that you can provide for your family. Who's funding that food stamp application? Taxpayers. Another issue is that the reality is raising the minimum wage does help our economy. And data shows states that have raised the minimum wage to what's closer to a living wage in the past creates a more robust business economy by creating a thriving middle class. What happens when you have more dollars in the hands of the average person, of someone who's not wealthy? They invest in their local businesses, they buy more, they spend more, they support the local economy. What happens when you put that money into the hands of CEOs and executives? They put it in a bank account and not support the economy, and they just try to create generational wealth and pass that money down. So it will ultimately help the economy, but if you check out my minimum wage platform on my website, I do have a proposal for small businesses. I know that immediately enacting a $22 minimum wage is not feasible for many small businesses, and I believe that it's time for California as a state to use some of this $15 billion surplus that we have to step in and allow and enable small businesses to pay their workers a living wage, because the majority of small business owners that I know would like to pay their workers more if they had the support and funding to do that. But raising the minimum wage is widely popular among voters in this district. Extremely few voters that I've interacted with at all have any reservations against it, and we've had many signatures on our campaign already. And it will ultimately lift people out of poverty while strengthening our economy.
Okay, do we have other questions? Last chance. Okay, thank you so much for coming. It was really great hearing from you, and we're not quite sure how soon we're going to send out the ballots. We're still working on some issues that way. Anyway, but you will be hearing from us one way or another. Okay, thanks a lot. Okay, we're moving on to the next speaker. And that is James Aguilar. Are you ready, James?
Ready to go,
well,
Carol.
Welcome to OREB.
Thank you. Thank you, everyone. I've been a registered member of DSS since 2018, so I know and appreciate the work you guys do. Thank you for your time. My name is James Aguilar, and I was born and raised in Oakland. I was raised in Oakland's historic Diamond District. I was just a walk away to Glenview Elementary School. I was just a bus ride away to Edna Brewer Middle School. And those are the two schools that I ultimately went to. I'm a product of Oakland Public Schools. But while my experience in Oakland was great being raised, our family faced a bit of an interesting situation. We had a predatory landlord who was pushing us out. Our landlord did not care that my mom was facing health issues, that we were a low income family that could barely make it. No, he didn't care. So we decided we're done. And we moved to San Leandro. While it was a bit hell trying to find a new place in the Bay Area, we landed here. And for the longest time, we lived in a 1-bedroom apartment with 5 people. And that's the same sort of situation that I see with a lot of different individuals, different families in the Bay Area. And it's unfortunate. But nonetheless, this San Leandro is where I started my career, really. I started at San Lorenzo High School, where I worked my way to become the first student board member of San Lorenzo Unified. And man, that was an experience. I picketed with teachers to make sure that they got the salaries that they deserved. And I worked to better understand our education system. And one thing that pushed me to get more involved was the fact that California is the 5th largest economy in the world, yet 41st in the nation for per pupil spending, and we can spend $70,000 per prisoner. As a student, even now as an adult, it didn't make sense. It will never make sense to me. So that's what really pushed me over and said, I'm going to run for school board because I want to act as an agent of change. I want to act as someone who's going to be up in Sacramento in that leveraged position and say, this is wrong. Our communities are suffering. Our education system is suffering because we're not adequately addressing the foundation of our society. Over in San Leandro Unified, we've been addressing many things. We've been working on ethnic studies. One of the things that I've been working on right now is pushing the school district to implement a program just like modeling off of Rigel Robinson in Berkeley, getting all gendered language out of our system and making sure that we make it inclusive for our students, in addition to providing more services for LGBTQ plus students and more. And so now I'm running for assembly, empowered by the experience of my mom going through health issues, empowered by the experience of students, teachers, and staff, and really pushing education as a priority. And, Delane Easton has endorsed my campaign because one, she understands education is and needs to be a priority in California, and that the party and our system needs new leadership, new young and energized and ready to go leadership. But I was also empowered by my family because of everything that we've gone through and the process it took to even get here, to even sit in this room and where you see my background, to even sit here. So I'm working toward many different things. And in the assembly, I'm going to be a fighter for the working class, a fighter for you, because I've been through it. I know what y'all have been through and I know what I've been through, and we can take that experience and really do something with that, get a powerful movement on the ground so that we can actually push forward legislation that works for the people, because that's what our government is supposed to do. Anyways, James Aguilar, I'm excited to start answering questions. I really thank you for your time.
Okay, also, James, be sure to put contact info in the chat so people can donate or volunteer or ask you questions or whatever. Okay, who would like to start the question thing? Okay, Jake.
Yeah, mine's the same question about housing. Would you oppose or support a public real estate developer? This could also be the community land trust in that area expanding to be a public real estate developer / general contractor / land trust / citywide HOA to basically take care of the entire residential life cycle.
Yeah, I support all of that. I'm definitely on your side, and I would oppose. And really, we need to reprioritize who it is that we choose to work with. I'm not taking any money from real estate, any developers, because I understand that they don't really know what we're going through as people. So I definitely, I'm on your side to support you.
Matthew, I think was Matthew next or Brandon next? I wasn't paying
I think Matthew's the next one I noticed. So go for it, Matthew.
Okay, cool. Yeah, so my question is the same question for every candidate. In the United States, in the San Francisco Bay Area, and in Oakland, which constitutes most of the district, there are more vacant homes than there are homeless individuals. Do you believe our housing crisis is a crisis of total supply or a crisis of how much affordable housing is available?
So first, on the point of just vacancies in general, I think we really need to push a vacancy tax, but that's a conversation for later. Really, the root cause is definitely lack of affordable housing and lack of inaction, really. I know that when my parents and I were trying to move from Oakland to somewhere in the Bay, we ended up in San Leandro. It was hell. And because we were thrown around, I saw what the real root causes were. We need to get more affordable, transit-oriented, mixed-use housing and push social housing. And I even think that ADUs are going to be really important in the conversation going forward if we're really going to get rough and really get serious on housing. We've got work to do.
Okay, great.
I have a follow-up question. Is that okay? Yeah. So do you think that building more market rate housing will helps our affordable housing or helps the crisis? Or do you think
it could, but it's not. I think it could, but it's definitely not the end all solution. We need to work toward more creative solutions too. Just one path forward is definitely not the box for the multiple paths that we need to take to make sure that we are building more market rate housing in the Bay Area. It's going to involve multiple steps. So, and I think it's important that I want to pull in, our union partners and make sure that everyone who's going through situations like this are in the conversation so that I can better understand how to move forward and really get the facts straight.
Okay, great. We have two other people right now with their hands up, 3 people. So we'll do it in this order. Brandon, Paola, and Shirley. Okay, Brandon, you're on. Good to see you here.
Yeah, so happy to be here in East Bay. And James, thank you so much. I love a lot about your ideas. They sound super great. As you know, we're a Bernie group, right? We organize out of the Bernie campaign. So I do have to ask this question. I do know that you were the youngest, you are the youngest Bay Area elected, but you had endorsed Pete Buttigieg for president. And, just would love to hear why, what your thoughts were around that and why you chose him as your choice for president.
Yeah, and I will say that, yes, I did endorse and support Pete Buttigieg, but mine was set on a progressive movement. So my second was Bernie all the way. And that is who I ended up voting for because Pete did drop out. But I supported Pete because he had an overall message that really resonated with me when it comes to providing the values and really pushing our country to move past it. Shitty administration. I think we needed a very calm and a voice that resonated with people who were tired, and that voice that was resonating with conservatives, with many different people of many different ideological spectrums. I just think that the message that he pushed out was very close and near and dear to me. So that's why I supported it. And, he was actually the first candidate I ever supported when it came to finance, second to Bernie Sanders. And it's just his message and his idea of pushing issues and values as a campaign and making sure that we're reining in not just one group of people, but everybody.
Thank you.
Okay, Paola.
Is it me now?
Yep, you're on.
Okay, thank you. Thank you. Hi there. I do have 2 questions, if you allow me. First of all, are you a rental property owner? And second of all, can you tell us what your campaign is looking right now? How much money do you have in the bank?
So I am proudly not a rental. I don't own anything. We're just in this apartment here. I'm a renter. I'm a tenant, and that's where that lies. My campaign financially, we're at low numbers, but I consider that okay. I don't think money is the end all. People are going to come out and say, I raised XYZ amount of money, but it's about getting that message and connecting with voters. So that's what I'm relying on. Second, of course, to getting out there and fundraising, but the importance to me lies with pushing the values and issues that we have to address.
Thank you.
Did you say you had a second question?
She got it.
Oh, okay.
That was it, the second one about the campaign.
Yeah. Oh, okay. So next is Shirley, followed by Kabir.
I have a feeling I'm stealing Kabir's question. Have you officially endorsed an Alameda County Democratic, not Democratic, district attorney candidate?
I have. I'm proud to support Pamela Price, and for Sheriff Joanne Walker. I think they are the leadership that we need. I'm tired of Ahern. We need change in Alameda County. And it's clear that Pamela Price and Joanne Walker are the right people.
Thank you.
Okay, Kabir.
That was my question.
Well, do you have another question? Okay. Steve, I guess you're next.
I might have jumped past Shirley, I don't know. But so first, as a former teacher and coach at Claremont, I want to apologize for my basketball team sweeping Edna Brewer every time we played you. It was purely intentional, but it was nothing personal. So you actually look like you might be at an age where you might have been in the stands or on the floor. So there we go. Next is, we speak to equity in schools, and especially coming out of Oakland for me, and facilities being very different across the board, from the flats of Oakland to the hills, just in Oakland itself, but across the spectrum from San Leandro, Alameda, right? Even now, I taught in Alameda at Wood Middle School, very different than the moneyed section right across the bridge and the river and the equities there. And we talk a lot about, of course, equity issues around color, but I'm a special education teacher, and I see a lot of equity, especially coming out of COVID and other things, for students with disabilities, just equity issues in general. You talked about needing to make sure we improve our education. How do you see that for the state, and then particularly to the Bay Area communities that you'd be representing here? What's your again, low-hanging fruit and agenda towards improving the situation?
Yeah, I think many steps, but first is to actually stop using equity as a bit of a talking piece. I think a lot of candidates come out and say, we need to make our schools equitable. Throwing equity out there is definitely not the greatest thing if you don't know what equity is. And I think that's important. So being in the San Leandro Unified School District and San Lorenzo Unified and Oakland Unified as a student, I better understand what that means. I think how we're going to work toward it is definitely that funding piece. I'm a big proponent of full and fair funding for public schools, all public K-12 schools, funding for all colleges and universities, because we have to. Section 18, sorry about that. Article 16, Section 8 of the California Constitution states that we must set forth the funds necessary for public schools first. I think that's important. First is that word. And if we're going to do that, and we're going to put our money where our mouth is, then we will follow the Constitution, and we'll make sure that we are providing the funds that are necessary to support low-income schools like we haven't before. For example, over in San Leandro, and in San Leandro, frankly, we have facilities that are way past their due date. We're talking about 70s, 80s infrastructure that has not yet been pulled. And that needs to change. We need to modernize our entire system. But, when it comes to equity, that also means providing three things. I'll say three things. We need to make sure that we have the resources necessary to uplift our low-income students and to make sure that they have the adequate resources to be successful in school. And that's not just K-12, that's also higher education. I work at San Francisco State University, so I have that perspective as well. It comes to curriculum too. We have to ensure that we're really pushing ethnic studies. We're pushing social justice as a requirement in our schools. I think that's infinitely important, but that also means providing the resources necessary to our teachers who are going to be teaching that. Instead of just mandating, because the state loves to mandate things without real follow-up support. That's the same for our labor unions. If we're gonna mandate new infrastructure changes, anything to our buildings, then we need to provide the workforce development funds that are going to be necessary to support unions. And we also need to empower quality project labor agreements so that we're moving forward adequately. There's a lot more to it. I could talk about it for a while, but that's my overall answer.
For a while, but that's exactly what I'm trying to get at. You know, we talk broadly about it, and what does equity mean? And that was a very good answer. Thank you. And go Gators.
Thank you.
We have
Yeah, go Gators.
Okay, the next question is going to come from Tonya Love. Tonya, you're on.
Hi, James. How are you?
Hi, Tonya.
My question is, where do you stand on state inserting itself in OUSD policies? Can you just give me your thoughts on that? And what their recent decision on something that was really grassroots decision, especially around Black and Brown students, and how do you feel about them inserting themselves into that process?
Yeah, I'm a big supporter of local control, making sure that our school districts are working by themselves and not necessarily having the state coming in and imposing in any of their decisions. Oakland has gone through state receivership too many times. You know, I think I was actually a student when Oakland went into receivership. So I know what it's like. It's rough. It's tough. And while I think the state, you know, sometimes can come in and really provide what would be needed, I still think that local control is more important than ever because our districts really understand what our students need more than the state of California does. And at that, you know, I think that the Oakland Unified is changing. Leadership in Oakland Unified has definitely gotten infinitely more progressive, and I'm proud of that. I'm proud that we're electing progressive champions, democratic socialists up on the school board because we need them there. And that leadership needs to be taken into account. So for sure, I am not a supporter of the state coming in. But of course, you know, as someone who is a big supporter of unions, if anything were to happen, if there were stalled contracts, of course, I'd be open to coming in and being a mediator in negotiation. But, you know, without overstepping. I think that's the problem. California needs to stop overstepping when it comes to our public school districts, just in general.
There's a current movement to have there be an audit of FCMAT and a removal of state receivership from Oakland. Is that something you would support?
I would. I think that we need to, rather than letting our school districts go into state receivership, the state just needs to get the funding, period. If we continue to be 41st in the nation, as some people will say 38th, but 41st accounts to cost of living, then we're really disadvantaging our students and we're not doing what our Constitution says that we need to. And the question is, how do we do that, right? We need to work on the Prop 13 split roll. I think that's going to be really, really important. And especially given that, you know, Prop 15 did not survive, and we have to bring back legislative action on that. In addition, implementing a wealth tax, a property transfer tax, and making sure that the top executives of corporations are held accountable and taxed as well, because they all have the money. That's how we're going to get the money, and reprioritizing as well. But yes, I would support removing state receivership.
Hey, thank you.
Thank you.
Okay, let's see, Paola?
Uh-oh, I think she froze.
Did you have another question or did you hit the button by mistake? Paola?
I do have one more question.
Okay.
I do have, if I'm permitted, one more question.
Go for it.
I'm sorry, I'm having bad connectivity issues, so maybe you have to skip me. Okay, better.
Well, we've got somebody else that has a question and then maybe it'll work. So we'll come back to you in a minute. Dorothy?
Yeah, hi. Could you speak to how you would support AB 1400 CalCare and hopefully to get it from suffering the same fate as 562 did last time in the assembly? Thank you.
Yeah, of course. AB 1400 is really close to my heart because single payer would have completely averted the situation that my mom went through. You know, she has cystic fibrosis, fibromyalgia, and her doctors absolutely pushed her around. And, you know, prescription costs are skyrocketing. And single payer would have infinitely helped her. So I'm empowered to advocate for her and really for the people who've gone through similar situations. And in that same vein, I would love to be a lead when it comes to pulling for AB 1400 back to the table and really getting a grassroots movement behind it immediately so that we can push for it and make sure that we're really getting it done. And, you know, it's going to take a lot of work. So I need you guys with me as we do that.
Okay, did you get connected?
Yeah, I'm connected, but you know what? Let's, I've already asked questions. I'm good. Thank you.
Okay, we got one more question, then we've really got to move on, and that's Rusko. Go for it.
Great to see you, James. I'm also a former Vallejo school board who was elected at a young age years ago. And my school district was getting out of state receivership. So how would you help school districts, not just Vallejo and Oakland, but also like Inglewood, who are still paying off the state debt?
Yeah, I think I think that too often our districts are in debt because the state wouldn't provide the money adequate, right? I think that whole problem comes back to full and fair funding. We really need to put that focus on it. I think when it comes to debt, I would be in favor of the state of California forgiving our school districts of debt because we need to, and we need to make sure that they are focusing on educating our children as opposed to funding a system that is not working for them. So I'm empowered to push for that as well as continuing that fight for full and fair funding. And I would be remiss if I didn't say it's going to be hard because full and fair funding is ambitious as hell, but we got to do it.
Thank you. And last question is AB 279.
Yeah, I definitely support AB 279. And I want to ensure in there too that we expand on protection for care workers and their respective unions. I think that's important. It's great as it is, but expanding and making sure it's even better.
Okay, thank you very much. And thanks to all of the candidates. We had two other people scheduled, Mia Bonta and Malia Villa, and I don't believe either of them are able to be here. Is anybody here representing them? Okay, then that looks like.
Did they even fill out the questionnaire and get it in?
I'm not positive where that we're at on that.
Mia did.
Michael will address that in a couple minutes. We're going to move on to our next segment and then to our final segment. Our next segment is going to be kind of a few announcements and explanation of endorsement process, etc. So the first thing is I want to make a special announcement. Our Revolution East Bay is going to do a fundraiser for Nina Turner. I see you clapping, Brandon, and we're working with the campaign right now to finalize the date. It's likely either going to be the 14th or 16th of June, and it's in the beginning stages, but I think it's going to be exciting, and we hope you all can attend. So that's all I have to say about that at this point. If anybody wants to comment, Brandon, you just did one. You want to say anything?
I mean, I'm just really excited. I love Nina Turner. I could see her a million times. So I'm excited about the fundraiser. And yeah, we raised, all we did was just like outreach to like our friends and all our Bernie people. And we're just like, come, we need as many people as possible. And we raised $10,000 just from like just doing like normal, just outreach, like phone, just calling your friends, texting your friends. And we raised $10,000, and it wasn't even anything that was really hard, just normal organizing. So like, you know, make sure that you get like a little list together and like, you know, go down with all your burners and get all their phone numbers and text them and then call them, you know, and get them signed up. And yeah, you'll fill that room real fast. Everyone loves Nina Turner. So yeah, and I'll come. I'm so excited.
Yeah. Okay. I just want to mention, this is specifically to you, Brandon. They asked me what our goal was, and I says, we're going to beat you guys. Just some friendly rivalry.
I hope you do. I hope you beat us, because it all goes to Nina. So I don't even care. I hope
Yeah,
you
I know a lot of us love Nina a whole lot also. Okay, so the next thing is, Jake is going to speak for a minute about our Revolution National and our Revolution California.
Cool. So basically, we have the beginnings of an Our Revolution California with most of the major chapters in California, and we're actually picking up, Brandon's usually at that meeting also. We're also trying to pick up all the other stray chapters that are around and seeing who's there. I know there was somebody here, I think it was Justine, that was talking about OR North Bay. And so that's one of the things we're trying to do at the OR California meeting is consolidate and figure out where all the chapters are so that we know what our district boundaries are, who OR National has to go to figure out endorsements, because that's a really big deal to them. Mike from National is on those meetings every week. And so we now have a direct line to National. So when we need to endorse candidates, it's not that hard anymore. And so they are very interested in the AD 18 rates and also the upcoming district attorney and sheriff's race in Alameda County. So that's that. We also are doing fundraising for Our Revolution National. So if you can, try to be a sustaining member. It's $5 a month. It's not that big of a deal. And if you can give more, that'd be great. I think there are levels, but I forgot what they are. And I think that's it. Is there anything else, Carol?
I think there's a question from Chris Peoples.
Oh, yes. Chris wanted to talk to us about AC Transit, AC Transit project yeah, go ahead, Chris, and tell us what's going on.
Yeah, thank you. AC Transit is having a series of transit talks. The one for Alameda and Hayward has already happened. The rest of them are in the next couple of weeks. Go to actransit.org/talks. Talks a little bit about what we're doing during the pandemic, how we're coming out of the pandemic, and then talking about a project we've got to sort of redesign the network. So I would encourage everybody to go to those things. I attend most of them, and to find out what's going on at AC Transit, what does the future look like, and then what are the plans for redesigning the network, which is going to happen over the next couple of years. This is very important for essential workers and for folks who don't have cars and for kids who need to get around, et cetera. So actransit.org/transit talks.
Okay. Could you put that in the chat for people, Chris?
I just put it in.
Oh, okay. Okay. Jake put it in. Okay. So we just had a bunch of candidates here. 3 anyhow. There's 2 other people also that are interested in our endorsement. So Michael Chang is going to talk about what's going on and how to be a voting member.
Carol.
Joaquin.
Oh, I still don't know how to ask a question. You have to put it in chat, or you just raise your hand?
No, there's a little
on Zoom at the bottom, there's a reactions button. When you click on that, it says raise your hand.
Oh, reactions. Okay.
Yeah.
I just wanted to.
And then we see a little hand lit up by people's names, so we know who to call on.
Okay. Hey, I just wanted Jake, maybe you could mention when those meetings are and how you join. And I think it's great that we're having all these California chapters, some of which are barely alive and some are really thriving and, get together, and we're trying to push this national Our Revolution movement. And of course, Monday nights, they have the pep talk on Mondays from the national. But I think I've been just sort of observing on some of the California meetings, and but if Jake could elaborate a little when they are, and how you can anybody just join in?
Brandon might have more information about that.
I'm sorry, can you repeat the question?
Yeah, on the California Our Revolution meetings on Thursday nights, I guess it's every week or something. Is that open to anyone to observe or participate? And, I think it's Thursday, I forget the time, but, the details.
Oh, for the state organizing committee?
Yeah.
Oh, I don't see why not, why we can't have more people.
Yeah. So Thursday
at
7 o'clock,
7 o'clock.
7.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah, but I think what Emily had asked us to do, and then we derailed ourselves a little bit, was to just give our.
Oh, I thought she was talking to me.
What was that?
I have no idea.
Oh, I think somebody got unmuted for a minute. Okay.
Yeah, I know for a while they were talking about California chapters should all unite around the healthcare bill in the Assembly or Senate, whatever it was. And, so we got to try to coordinate our California chapters. So it's a great thing, and we should publicize it more and get more chapters active in it. Most of them, I think, are now in Southern California.
Okay. Okay. Now we're going to hear from Michael about our endorsement process and how you can become a member.
Sudia, I don't know how to pronounce your name, but Sudia's had her hand up for a while.
Oh, I didn't see that. Sudia?
Sudia. I just wanted to say we've been tuning into the national organizing meeting every Monday evening, California time at 5:30, like about 5:30, 6:30. And it's really inspiring to know and feel that our revolution is happening all over the country, and that there's good candidates being put up all over the country and a lot of support. So it just kind of gets you out of your Bay Area bubble or even California bubble to know that so much is going on across the country. And there's lots of special elections also. So I recommend tuning in if you can. You can, they don't show your face, so you can be having dinner at the same time if you want.
Yeah, I know there's amazing guests on the national. It's been really great.
Yeah.
Okay, last question on this. Matthew?
Oh yeah, it's not a question, it's a comment. I was gonna say I'd really love to see like ways for us to get involved, for everybody here who wants to and has the time to do so, to get involved at the state level, like, even if it's like some kind of semi meetings that are quarterly that are like where everybody can participate, or making it easy for folks who want to get involved and organize in leadership at the state level. And I also think the same thing should be thought of at the regional level. Like we should have some type of umbrella coordinating organization for all the chapters that constitute the Bay Area, particularly if we're hearing now that there are more chapters than we thought of. I didn't realize there was currently a North Bay chapter, or is going to be.
Well, that's the thing, is when we were looking through the list, there's a list of about 119, but maybe only like 20 of them are actually returning any of our contacts. And some of them were just like Democratic clubs, or like, a DSA chapter that flipped to an Our Revolution chapter so they can use that to do some sort of endorsement. So we're not really sure how many of them are actually active, real Our Revolution chapters.
Right, the old map that's no longer on the website. Okay, yeah. I think most of that. But yeah, and I think somebody just posted in here that they're interested in getting North Bay going. So
yeah, I'm talking to Jessica right now.
I'm in contact with her now. She just gave me her phone number.
Yeah, great. And hopefully we can get a South Bay chapter going as well. I know folks who might be interested.
Okay.
Yeah, and
Okay,
the CA.
very
the-
last comment or question, then we must move on, folks. Gordon,
You're muted.
unmute yourself.
Yep, my apologies for being muted. It would be very good if this was done with social issues in previous decades, and they became litmus test issues for candidates. And I think we should make some of these economic issues like AB 1400 litmus issues. With that, I yield.
Okay, great. We're going to move on, guys. We could go on and on and on. Michael, you ready to talk?
Yeah. So just a little side information. I was on the phone with my daughter, who is an emergency room physician in Cleveland, working for the county hospital. She told me there's Nina Turner signs everywhere in Cleveland. So that's
All
good.
right, that's good news.
And okay, a report on the endorsement and membership. The word questionnaire has been mentioned many times, so I'll let you know. I started participating in this process of endorsement last year during the 2020 November election. The questionnaire, the spirit is the same. It doesn't change, but each time, will be the third time we'll be sending out, or we sent out so far. Each time there is a little change based on the nature of the election or the ballots. So we sent out to the 5 candidates. 4 of them have returned the questionnaires, and we have since formed a endorsement committee within OREB. Matthew is one, therefore he knows about some of the answers to the questionnaires, and Steve is another one. So in the next week or so, we'll be looking at the responses to these questionnaires, and we will make a recommendation to the membership of OREB who will vote on these candidates. And to be able to vote, one must be a member of OREB. How does one become a member of OREB? The first requirement is you pay your dues. The way to pay your dues, I know of one way, is go to www.ourrevolutioneastbay.org. There's a donate button, and there are several levels of donation, or you can also make a recurring donation. And there's probably other ways, but I don't know of. Maybe Jake can help a little bit later on, or Matthew can. And we will mail the ballots to the members by 15th of May. And we'll give you a few days to return the ballots, and we'll announce the ballots and the results. We'll also post the responses to the questionnaire on the web. So if you are interested in learning more about each one of the candidates, you are able to look at the responses.
The responses questionnaire will also be on the ballot, so you can see each one of their answers.
Yep. Can one of you address paying dues other than our
Yeah,
website?
I just put the link in the chat for the donate. So if you're not updated on your dues, please do that. You can send a check-in if you want to. Carol's address is probably where you send it to. Please just do it electronically.
Okay, I'll put my address in just a second.
Can one also donate via the Action Network, or is it set up?
Not yet. We haven't gotten that set up yet. We need to get all the paperwork and the Stripe set up.
Okay.
So right now it's just PayPal on our donate page.
That's the only way. Okay.
And credit card, because the PayPal donate now allows you to just do credit card without having a PayPal account. So if you don't have a PayPal account, it's okay. You can just use your credit card on that too.
Or debit card.
Debit card too, yeah.
All right, that's all I have.
Okay. We've got one more item on this, and then we're going to get to the candidate or the delegates. So Igor is going to speak briefly about an action regarding killing the rooftop solar. You still here, Igor?
I'm still here. And did you want me to speak now on that and environmental caucus later?
No, we'll get you separate on the caucus.
Okay, perfect. So there is a bill currently moving at a fast clip through the legislature that will, if passed, will be a death knell to rooftop scale solar. That bill is AB 1139. I'm going to drop a signature petition or a petition in the chat right now. There are going to be some other actions happening in the month of May that if you're interested in engaging in, I will also drop my email address. What this bill essentially does is it makes it more difficult for consumers to be able to get access to rooftop scale solar and storage, and reduces the ability for it to be affordable to middle class and working class families. In addition, it also goes retroactive. So if you took the time and paid a pretty penny to install a solar system in the last decade, let's say, in California, and you were just reaching your payback period by not using all the energy that it provides and being able to sell back excess energy to the grid, thus also improving resiliency throughout the state. This is going to change the math so that what you get back starts being the equivalent of pennies on the dollar. Who's behind this measure? Investor-owned utilities, PG&E, SoCal Gas, San Diego Energy. Why are they behind this measure? Because they know that the way that our state is moving, pretty soon, investor-owned utilities are going to be obsolete, and they're very worried. But in today's legislature, if a bill like that comes up, and you know that PG&E is behind it, it's not going to go anywhere. So they've gotten really smart. They talk to the unions of workers that are part of that industry. When you hear that AB 1139 is about equity, it is not. It actually makes it more difficult and less equitable to roll out renewable energy generation and access to the middle class and working class. When you hear that this is a labor and environmental dispute, it is not that either. Labor does not support 1139. One particular union, IBEW, supports 1139. So when the next time that you hear about AB 1139 and you hear it couched as something that will increase equity, we all agree that equity is important. This is absolutely the wrong way to go about it, because all this is another bailout for investor-owned utilities. And you all know as well as I do that the last thing that PG&E and SoCal Gas and Edison need is another bailout. So please tell your friends, tell your neighbors, tell anyone that has solar, that wishes to get solar, that like me lives in an apartment and doesn't currently have access to solar, but would like to, in the next few years, be in a place where it is accessible to all of us in California. Tell them about this petition. Tell them to call their state representative, their state assembly member and state senator to oppose AB 1139. And please spread the word on this petition. Thank you so much.
Okay,
So let's just get
thanks so
straight,
much. Just go ahead.
real quick, Igor, let's just get straight to the point. Who is introducing this? Like, I want names, which legislatures, which senators, which assembly district. I want to know who wrote it and who's sponsoring it.
Great question, Jake. I've got names. It is authored by Assembly Member Lorena Gonzalez. This is unfortunate because Lorena Gonzalez loves to talk about equity. And there are some things that we have been aligned with her on in the past. But this ain't one of them. This is basically her doing the bidding of a major San Diego investor-owned utility in her district. Lorena also happens, I'm sorry, Assemblymember Gonzalez happens to be the appropriations chair in the assembly, which is why, even though Democratic legislators understand all of this, in the last two committee hearings, they did not want to incur the wrath of the appropriations chair, the second most powerful position in the assembly. So most of them voted yes, with a couple of abstentions by a couple of assembly members in that committee. This is now going to move into the state Senate. That's where we need to stop it, because you know, there's a different appropriations chair in the state Senate. And what we really hope to do is have an honest discussion about, like you said, Jake, who's behind this, who's funding this, and who's bidding this is being done, because that's completely unacceptable.
Yeah, and that way they become targets in the next election so that we can send primary opponents after them.
Okay, thank you so much, Igor. Here we go now. We get to hear from all of these delegates, many of whom we endorsed and supported, and we want to know what you're doing for us now. So we're going to start with Susanna Williams, who's the co-chair with me of our Revolution East Bay, and she's also a delegate. And then she'll introduce each delegate, but she's going to share first about how the weekend was and maybe about a particular caucus she's in or whatever. Go for it. Hi, Susanna.
Awesome. Thanks, Carol. Yeah, we're just all coming off of that 6-hour marathon Sunday session. Loads of fun. Yeah, so this was our first full-on virtual convention, and there was definitely a few things that popped out for me. One, high-speed broadband access is like critical, because there were so many issues and a huge percentage of them were caused by just technical problems. On Saturday, I was in somewhat rural Marin County, like Point Reyes area. And, you know, it's like a connectivity desert over there, but I managed to get on. I think the caucuses that use Zoom were better off. The Progressive Caucus, I won't steal any of Zach's thunder, I promise, Zach, but the Progressive Caucus using Election Buddy, Glenn Glazier and his team did a fantastic job with that. And that was, as far as I was concerned, the best actual election process. It was super easy. I had plenty of time to do it. Connectivity didn't really factor in terribly much. So that was really, really, really well done. The other caucus that I attended was the Veterans Caucus, where they also had an election. I think that election might actually be being redone. There were apparently some serious issues with it. Couple other takeaways. Maybe it was just me, but I did hear this from a lot of other delegates, especially newer delegates. It kind of seemed like on Saturday during the general sessions, it was like after every pre-recorded video from a speaker, there was like a plea for money. And then you heard the stories about the Finance Standing Committee meeting where everyone got kicked out and they went into closed session. But then everybody has the small dollar program and they want to know, they want to know why it isn't successful. And it's because of the lack of transparency. Bernie Sanders set, records we've never seen for small dollar donations, and a huge percentage of those came from California. There's absolutely no reason why the California Democratic Party can't have a successful small dollar donation, but they're just going to have to be transparent. As delegates, we have a right to know how much money is coming in, where it's coming from, where it's going. And I predict they're still going to have financial problems until they solve that. So those were kind of my key takeaways. If one of the other delegates that speaks after me has this info, I attended the new delegate training just for kind of a refresher. This is my third term as a delegate, so I've got a bunch of the stuff dialed in. But standing committee applications, hopefully it'll be available soon. I think Emma addressed it, but I didn't get like the date when it was going to be available. They usually give you a little bit of time to actually apply for that. So I strongly encourage you to apply for multiple standing committees. And us progressives have had a little bit of trouble getting on some of these standing committees, but we've definitely gotten some people on there, and it's helped us with a lot of things, like having somebody on rules, having somebody on bylaws, legislation. Those are areas where we can definitely make an impact. And then I'm super, super happy to announce, you see my CalCare Zoom banner, that AB 1400 CalCare will be supported by the California Democratic Party. We're obviously taking a little pause because no one apparently, wants to push this thing forward right now. But there's a lot of support for it, and the party is officially going to take a position of support on it. So those were kind of my highlights. Far as I know, all of the sessions have been recorded. I heard Jaraka's speech was really good. Unfortunately, I missed it. I was multitasking at the time, but I heard it was really good. So go back. They're going to be posted. They had some technical difficulties. Surprise, surprise. So it's going to be posted, Emma said, shortly. So I would think in the next day or so, either on the CADM site or on the convention site. I'm not sure exactly where it's going to go, but keep an eye out for that. We'll put it in social media when it pops up as well. So that was my takeaway from the 4 days of virtual convention. I cannot wait to get back to real conventions. I miss you all. This was not the same. So anyway, without further ado, we've got an impressive lineup of people on our list. So next up, I'd like to introduce Alfred Tu. Alfred, you are like one of my favorite people. You helped me out immensely today with your knowledge of all things housing. When we were looking at an amendment to the accessory housing and the lot division resolution. So that was super helpful. So Alfred, you're an 8015 Assembly delegate. So go ahead and take it away.
Hi, everybody. So as all of you know, this was our first fully online convention for the whole party, though there have been previous meetings of smaller groups in the past. The next one will be in August. It will be a smaller group meeting, but it also looks like it will be online. So I'll go over some of the highlights from the resolutions and the legislation endorsements. So among the resolutions, they prioritized about a dozen of them, including ones to abolish the filibuster, to condemn police violence, to cancel student debt, denouncing anti-Asian hate. There was one that Igor led about making sure that renters also have access to renewable energy and electric car charging. There's one that Marisol Rubio led on transparency for settlements where involving adults with intellectual disability who are victims of sexual assault. There's a single-payer healthcare resolution, and also one about making sure that other countries also get vaccines. So there's also a bunch of bills endorsed, and some of the highlights of bills that we endorsed include Assembly Bill 20, which is banning corporate donations to politicians. Assembly Bill 71, funding affordable housing by taxing overseas profits on large corporations. Assembly Bill 1177, about public banks. And AB 1400, which is the CalCare bill. AB 1487, which is to fund legal services for tenants. Senate Bill 467, which would ban fracking. And then we also are endorsing some federal legislation. Some of the big ones are the PRO Act, which is to protect the right to organize, which would be huge for people who want to unionize. And then also HR 256, which is repealing the authorization of use of military force in Iraq. which is Barbara Lee. So there are a lot more. I will send you the link to them in the chat. And other things, I want to thank everybody who voted for the troublemaker slate on the Progressive Caucus. They swept, thanks to you and many others. It was, I feel like over 1,000 people voted in that, which may have been the biggest number of people voting on anything this whole weekend.
I think you're right, Alfred.
I have a question. What was the final amount that went for the, like who got the most votes? Like by how many? Was it a huge sweep or does anybody know?
I don't know. I was at the.
It was a huge sweep. Oh, I got the numbers from Zach, I believe. If he's still here, he might have the numbers in front of him.
Okay.
Yeah, it was there. It was definitely a huge margin between the next candidates.
I think it was 600 votes was the
closest one.
Yeah.
Yeah, that was the closest one. It was 600 votes apart. So it was definitely good. And yes, congratulations, Alfred, on your award. I'm so sorry, I totally forgot. My brain is like dead. So Alfred, for those of you who didn't see it in chat, he was awarded the Volunteer of the Year award for Region 5. So that is awesome. Next up on our list, we have my fellow partner in crime, one of the first people I met in our quest to get Bernie Sanders elected way back in 2016. He is over in the San Joaquin County area, which is, I never can remember this, AD 13. So Zach Denny, and Zach will tell you all about the Progressive Caucus and my favorite moment of the entire convention. It was awesome. So Zach, unmute yourself and take it away.
Hello, everyone. It's great to be here. I'm Zach Denny. I am the new membership officer of the Progressive Caucus. I want to thank each of you in here that participated in our caucus elections. Whether you voted for me or not, I'm here to serve you, and I'm looking forward to building our caucus. Yeah, I mean, out of all of the caucus meetings and committee meetings and events that happened this weekend, our caucus was definitely the most exciting. And for those of you that were fortunate enough to be a part of the meeting, you probably saw what was probably the most amazing thing I've seen, where we kicked off and elected our now Attorney General Rob Bonta for basically saying that he, wouldn't refuse to accept corporate money. And you know what? I think that's fair. Because as progressives, we have to stand for something. I don't have to go into why we know that money in politics is an issue, especially corporate money. So, if you want to come to the Progressive Caucus, you want to share your campaigns, you better be a corporate-free candidate. You better be a candidate that's fighting for the people, for your constituents, not for special interests like oil, privatized healthcare, the charter school industry, etc. And so I know that some of you were wondering about the election results. So we had, as of midnight on Friday, we had 3,087 members of the Progressive Caucus. And out of those, 1,291 members submitted a ballot. So a little less than half, but I want to especially give credit to all of those who put out the word to join our caucus. I know that we and the Troublemakers did an extensive organizing campaign of recruitment. We now, as of a few hours ago, heard that we are roughly 3,200 members now. Now, if we go just 100 more members than that, we will have about the same membership as the entire Democratic State Central Committee of the California Democratic Party. So what does that mean? That means that we are definitely a force to reckon with as far as membership, and that we do have a lot of work to do in terms of, of having our membership go out and organize around the issues that we all believe in. I know that in my role as a membership officer, It's going to be a few different things. It's going to be continuing to recruit because, I mean, as impressive as 3,200 members is, I know that we can do better. There are, 10 million registered Democrats in this state. And we know that there are plenty of progressive Democrats out there. If you look at the 2020 presidential primary results in the state, Bernie Sanders won. So, my whole thing is I want to go and introduce our caucus to as many progressive Democrats across our state and let them know that they have a home in our party. And they have a home base for organizing against the entrenched powers that be. I want our caucus to emulate the power that we wish to see, which is a mass working class, multiracial, multi-generational movement for racial, social, economic justice. And so, so there's going to be a few initiatives rolling out soon. I know that the first thing is I want to go through our membership roles, and I want to see, where our strength is as far as delegate members and as far as non-delegate members. I want to try to at least hit a point where we have a third of the DSCC as members of our caucus, if that's possible. Of course, that's going to also take organizing in ADEMs, organizing in Democratic Central Committee races, organizing in those appointments so that we get progressives in those seats. Because ultimately, if we are going to be the largest caucus in this party, which we are, by no doubt, and probably the largest progressive caucus of any state Democratic Party in this country, we can't just be, the progressive caucus in name only. We have to be the progressive caucus of action. We have to be out there in our communities, pushing the issues, organizing people, recruiting, and this can be recruiting people to run for ADEMs, recruiting people to run for Democratic Central Committees, recruiting people to come to conventions and speak to the committee meetings so that, different perspectives are being addressed and voiced at the California Democratic Party. And so I thank you for inviting me to this meeting. I'm going to drop some links in the chat. If you're not a member of our caucus, I encourage you to join. If you're not a member of our caucus, I encourage you to join. And I know that Brandon Harami was on here. He is your regional vice chair for the Bay Area. I don't think I have to say he is absolutely amazing. So if there's anything that you wish to see the caucus do, or something that you would like to get involved with in the caucus, please don't hesitate to reach out to him or me, the membership officer. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Zach. And again, congratulations to you and your entire slate. That was amazing. And that was one thing that was going through my mind when I read the numbers on how many members they had. I'm like, dang, we're like as big as the entire CDP, which is awesome. So next up, we have Igor Tregov. We've already heard from Igor a little bit on the solar situation. Igor is the new chair of the Environmental Caucus, which is another extremely powerful caucus within the state party. So Igor, and you're in AD 15, correct? I'm getting a handle on all the ADs here. Yeah, so Igor, tell us all about what happened at the Environmental Caucus and what's going on in that world.
Yeah, thank you so much. So we certainly have some ground to cover to be as powerful as a progressive caucus, but we're catching up. As of Thursday, we had 700 paid memberships plus many waiver requests. And as of this weekend, we likely have close to 1,000. So we're on our way there. And I hope that you all joined the Environmental Caucus. Earlier, I dropped in the chat. I know, I'm sorry, I dropped a lot of things in the chat. One of the things I dropped in the chat was the link to become a member of any caucus, including the Environmental Caucus. And I will also drop my email again in case you would like to request a hardship waiver. And you don't have to state the reason. You can just send me an email. If you want to waive the $25 dues, let me know. Glad to do it. Glad to have you on board. We had a bittersweet meeting because it was the final meeting of Ariel Miller. Many of you know Ariel Miller. Those of you who don't, you will probably continue to hear from her. She continues to be a GNC delegate. She's the founder of an organization called Climate Hawks Vote that elects progressive pro-climate candidates all across the country. And for the last 8 years, Ariel really catalyzed the environmental caucus from being a sleepy enclave within the CDP to the powerhouse that it is today, where we, on a regular basis, get action alerts and mobilize and within an hour's notice sometimes call into state assembly or Senate proceedings. Yes, thank you so much, Zach, for also posting the link to all the caucuses. AB 1139 is our #1 priority right now, but we also have a number of important pro-climate legislation that we got the party to endorse, and one by a Republican that we got the party to oppose. And if you scroll through your chat, you will see links to, I tried to tease out all the bills that have to do with climate issues. As was mentioned before, we did pass the only climate and the only housing or pro-tenant resolution on today's calendar. Out of 152 resolutions that were submitted, which was a record, 28 of them were up for consideration yesterday. And after a 6-hour-long resolutions committee meeting, we prioritized 13 of them. And one of them was this resolution supporting access to all Californians, including the tens of millions of tenants, to renewable infrastructure, because no one has to sacrifice their health or their children's health just because they're a tenant and therefore their landlord will not let them get a electric stove and they have to use natural gas, or they don't have EV charging infrastructure, or they don't have solarization or weatherization. So this resolution, right now, we have several proceedings going on before the Bay Area Air Quality Management District, before the Housing and Community Development Department, and before the California Energy Commission. And this resolution will help us right now on all 3 of those fronts to provide access. The other thing that I put in the chat is a resolution that ended up being a reaffirmation. The reaffirmations have the same force and effect as resolutions newly passed. What this does is, for the first time, this is a statement of principles by the party that we want by 2030 to phase out the sale of new internal combustion engine vehicles and move to zero emission vehicles. It also is a resolution in support of other any and all other ways that we can dramatically reduce anthropomorphic emissions by 2030 to nearly zero. So this is a very historic, powerful resolution, and thank you to the many delegates that signed it. I'm going to go back to Ariel for one more minute, because Ariel is amazing and does the work of a dozen people at any one time. So truly, I have very big shoes to fill. But that's why I rolled into this election 9 deep. We actually changed the bylaws unanimously, or nearly unanimously, to expand the amount of board members. So we now have a more representative group. This is the most inclusive, equity-oriented group that has ever been elected to the Environmental Caucus Board. We represent every part of California, and more than half of us are actually young Democrats. We're also working with, I got my start as a former refounding chair of the California Young Democrats Environmental Caucus. I'd like to congratulate Annie Koruga, who's on this call with us, for being elected as the Bay Area Regional Director of the CYD Environmental Caucus. So please join us. We have a lot of work to do, and IPCC says we don't have a lot of time to do it. So let's roll up our sleeves and do it now. One final request that I'm going to drop in the chat. This is from Marcy Winograd, who many of you know. Imagine what kind of things we could be spending money on if we were not spending it on defense. So if our Revolution East Bay wants to support this letter to allies in Congressional Progressive Caucus and House Defending Spending Reduction Caucus, I will leave it up to the OREB board to see how we can endorse that, but we would definitely appreciate your support. And back to you, sister. Thank you so much.
Awesome. Thanks, Igor. And Orel is amazing, but I think you're the perfect person to fill those shoes. So good luck. And congratulations, Annie. I just heard from Igor. I had no idea you were elected. So that's awesome.
Thank you.
You're welcome. Okay, so next up we have an amazing individual that I'm getting to know a lot. She's from AD 15. We are fellow cohorts trying to make some bold changes over at the Contra Costa Central Committee. So I'd love to, Carolyn Weisinger, love to hear your convention experiences and any caucuses that you might have popped in on. I saw a few of your mentions on Facebook.
Susanna is just being nice. She means I'm over there causing trouble. At Central Committee.
It's good trouble, trust me. I'm right there with you.
Well, this was my first convention as a real delegate. Last time I went as Courtney Welch's proxy, who brought me to the slate this year. But I was still getting to understand. She asked me that on my way to the convention, so I didn't know what I was supposed to do as a delegate that year. And I'm still kind of figuring it out this year, only because I never really got my delegate packet in the mail, like maybe because I moved. But it was still an interesting experience. I attended the Black Caucus, the LGBT Caucus, and the Women's Caucus. And both Black and Women's Caucus, especially Women's Caucus, women was pretty much celebrating Christine Pelosi, who stepped down this year. So that was a lot of, congratulations to her and electing the new officers. And the same kind of went in Black Caucus. I was excited though in Black Caucus. It kind of has a history of being very raucous, especially going back to the Darren Parker days. And I don't know how they got it toned down this year, but they actually used for their election something, I think it's called Slido or something like that. But I was very pleased that they really had their election game together, and they did primarily re-elect Taisha Brown, who I heard also got elected, I think, as vice chair over in the Labor Caucus. So we're excited about that. Before, when I ran with you all on the slate, I was a regional director for the Black Caucus. I think they've eliminated those this year. I haven't really heard much about them, but I may be doing a little bit more work in Women's Caucus and hopefully in LGBT Caucus as well. LGBT Caucus went 3 hours last night, and that's why I'm so tired after LGBT Caucus and then this 6-hour session. And that 6-hour session was rough for me. I kind of at times was looking up to see when folks who I really knew and trusted was explaining a lot of the different bills. So that was where I saw Brandon Harami. I got to talk a lot of mess with Tonya Love, who I see doesn't have their camera on, but talk with Tonya. And I was just kind of excited to kind of learn the process and hopefully maybe do a little bit better for our slate next time, as far as being a little bit more advised of, where I was going to vote. And some of the things that we voted on today, it was all about just language. I think it was the one on student loans. One of them, it was really about just changing particular words, and they went on for like 20 minutes or something like that. And I'm like, I'm tired. I was in LGBT Caucus till 10:30 last night. But it was a good experience, and I look forward to learning a lot more about the process. I'm looking forward to the link that I think Igor mentioned about getting on the standing committees. And just getting more involved and doing what I can to start pushing through more of our, our morals and values that we started when we ran through this campaign. So thank you again for helping me get elected. And I hope to continue as the next 2 years go on to do you all as proud as possible.
Awesome. Thank you, Carolyn. And you were not alone today. It was long.
Well, do they normally, you guys can tell me this, and I could be wrong, because like I said, I didn't get a packet, so I don't know what comes in the packet. But for me, I need to be able to look at stuff and like really read what I'm voting on. And so just kind of sitting there watching them like talk about stuff was very hard for me. It was a bit disheartening that we started session and maybe I just don't have a life, but that there were 400 delegates that were missing. That was disheartening.
Yeah, it's the virtual convention definitely, I mean, there's pluses to virtual, don't get me wrong, but boy, it wasn't, it wasn't kind of dialed in. Overall, I think it was fine. And we did a lot of good work, but it was really confusing and it was hard to follow today. So
I might have had more energy if I could have gone to happy hour with you guys last night or something.
Yes.
Maybe then I would have more energy.
We would have explained it all to you. Exactly. That's the part that's missing. So thank you, Carolyn. Awesome to hear. And you're almost a first-time delegate. So it's great to, get that feedback and the experience. So next up we have Sherry Johansson. Sherry's also in AD 15, I believe.
18.
18? Sorry, I know we haven't actually met in real life yet. So, but anyway, we'd love to hear about your convention experience and any caucuses or standing committee meetings that kind of stood out for you.
Well, Susanna, this is my third convention. And I certainly agree that there were pluses and minuses with the virtual. One of the things, and it was just mentioned, is we didn't get that being able to sit down with our fellow progressives and talk about the issues, figure out what, I remember one, I think it was the Kimberly Ellis election, that first one, where we actually said, okay, we're going to have a floor fight about this, and we're going to have a floor fight on this. And I think that's definitely, it was controlled by the people in charge, I think, a lot more, which is good or bad, but it means that a lot of our progressives' voices, I think, were kind of stifled a little bit. I was also in the progressive caucus last night till about, I think it was about 10:30 also, which was just wonderful. I was so happy to see that the troublemakers got in there. The other thing I would say is I was trying to multitask with the legislative committee and the resolution committee at the same time. They were scheduled at the same time. There were other things I wanted to see at the same time. And it was very difficult to be able to kind of know what was going on at all of the meetings at the same time. And I know even in a regular committee, a regular convention, that's true also, that you can't attend all of the things. So I think the scheduling is also sort of controlled so that the progressives don't have as strong a voice as they could be, just because of the way that things are scheduled. Anyway, overall, every convention I've been to, the progressives have had a much more influence. I love seeing Alfred up there, and Igor up there, and Zach, and just a lot of people who I know having a voice at the convention. Because at the first convention, there was hardly any Bernie Kratz that got to speak anywhere. So I think that's really good. And I really think we have to, they did not even speak about the ADEM election problem. That really didn't seem to come up, at least if it did, I wasn't listening. We're still having the problem of how do we make our party transparent and open to everybody and have everybody have a voice. And I think that's something that we as this group have to really work hard on in the next couple of years to get those young people to get that voice out. So thanks. It was interesting.
Awesome. Thank you, Sherry. Yes, 2017 Kimberly Ellis campaign, Sacramento was my first convention as well. So yeah, this was definitely different. Okay, so next up we have Rascal. And Rascal, how do you pronounce your last name? Because I know I'm going to blow it.
Hi, Susanna. It's my name. It's Kayang Young.
Kayang Young. Okay, got it. Okay, perfect. So Rascal, you are in AD 14, correct?
Yes.
Okay. So yeah, we'd love to hear about any, your feedback, thoughts on the convention, any caucuses that you attended, that sort of thing. So take it away.
Yeah, it's great to see everyone here. My first convention, from what I remember, even though it's been like a 4-day fatigue right now, my first convention I remember was when one of my mentors, then former Assemblywoman Mariko Yamada, was running for Senate, and she was able to She was able to do to organize and do a no endorsement. And this recent virtual convention is my third round, actually as a delegate. The first two was when I was like observing and supporting candidates. So I'm a member of the Progressive Caucus, Labor, API, Environmental, and there's one more. It's it's very tiring right now. Yeah, it was great to see many things at this convention. Primarily, I was also representing former Assemblywoman Mariko Yamada and her statewide Save Our Seniors Network to get organizations statewide to and community leaders to support AB 279, and spoke at the legislative committee. So it was my being a new delegate, especially coming to today's business that we all have to take. This is the first time that I'd never seen that we would get the meeting packet on the morning of, when we should have gotten our packet much earlier in advance, so we could fully study and make informed decisions. But that's but it's just great to see the work getting done, and the fight we're all fighting for changes, and look forward to applying for some standing committees, especially the finance committee. I was really, in my view, not happy to see the budget they posted online when, as a campaign treasurer for Javanka's Assembly campaign and other campaigns, who has to file campaign finance reports. Yeah, that's a change that needs to be tackled. Is we got to be transparent with our finances.
Awesome. Thank you, Rascal. Yeah, I couldn't agree with you more about that finance committee thing. It's been annoying me for quite some time. Okay, so next up we have lost my list here. Bobby Lopez. And Bobby, I believe you are an Alameda County Central Committee delegate. So would love to hear your thoughts and your convention experiences.
Sure. First off, shout out to Alfred for getting Volunteer of the Region Award. And then also shout out to all the progs on Legislation Committee like Soli Alpert and Brandon Harami for their amazing work. You know, I think a couple of things to say real quick about legislation. AB 71, which Alfred mentioned before, was actually not on consent. So really appreciate all the folks that came out to testify for it and push for it. And it did get on consent eventually. I was a little taken aback today when some other bills were taken off consent. You know, the Immigration Dreamer bill was taken off consent, and that vote was, I mean, it wasn't a close vote, but there's at least 300 people that opposed it. So that's something that deeply worries me in terms of like, what is our commitment to immigrants in this party? There's another bill about county elections that was taken off. All these bills passed, so yay, hooray, which is fantastic, but definitely still work to be done. Just a reminder in terms of that. My big, I mean, the Progressive Caucus was the best, most fun, of course. I was also part of the Chicano Latino Caucus with Paola. I don't know if Paola's still here. That was a very contested election for our region. So we have a really wonderful young progressive woman out of Sonoma that is our region chair. And unfortunately, she had a challenge from a very moderate individual who some of you who live in Berkeley know. who was kind of part of the school reopen group and anti-labor, and unfortunately he ran against her. So we were all hustling to get people to show up to vote. And actually it ended up being a 33-2 vote. So it wasn't even close. Our young progressive won. However, there were a lot of technical difficulties in the Chicano Latino caucus. The meeting was shut down abruptly. It was just a really, really rough experience. And unfortunately, we had a lot of first timers. This is not my first go around, but we had a lot of first timers in the Chicano Latinos. So that was really hard for folks to experience that. And just in general, I think there were a lot of things that came up that there's going to be a special meeting next weekend to kind of process everything that happened in that meeting. So a lot of work to be done too in terms of how we do these online platforms, because it definitely had, I mean, we couldn't even vote properly, just so folks knew. The voting did not work. So it was very hard to have contested elections and a non-voting polling system. But regardless, I think there are a lot of really great moments. So many amazing resolutions passed. So shout out to all the folks on resolutions committee too, Igor and other folks who worked on really landmark things. So, you know, I think there's a lot of energy and excitement. So I want to end on a positive note of that.
Awesome. Thank you, Bobby. Yeah, I saw a few posts about the Latino caucus issues. Veterans Caucus had a similar problem with the voting, apparently. So yeah, that whole Slido hop-in voting thing wasn't really dialed in. I think we had one more delegate who was going to speak to us, but I think she had to bail early, but just double checking. Barisha, are you here? I'm thinking not. I'm not seeing her.
I'm not seeing her
on the participant list. So I think she had to leave early. So that's the end of the list I had.
Okay. We don't have more people listed, but anybody who's a delegate who would like to share, we would love to hear from. We know there's more delegates out there.
Okay, y'all.
Yeah, just raise your hand or.
Yeah, raise your hand or just unmute and talk. You're among friends here. Okay, well, see, everybody else is shy.
We have a couple. Okay. We have a phone number person was first, ending in 2550, and then we have Annie. I don't know who the phone number person is.
I don't either. So I just asked them to unmute.
Okay.
But it's not working.
Yeah, they're on a phone.
Okay, well, let's go to Annie.
It's either *9 or *5 to unmute on a phone. I forget. One of them is unmuted, one of them is raised hand.
It's star, it's *5. *9 is to raise your hand.
*6. Sorry,
there you go. Okay, so
hey, everybody.
Go ahead, person on the phone. Please introduce yourself.
This is Paola.
Oh,
hey.
Hi.
Hi there. I had to go on the phone because my computer, the connectivity was kind of crazy. Anyways, hi. It was my first time being a delegate. I was able to attend the Spanish speaking event on Thursday for I was on Spanish. It was how to reach out to the Spanish speaking community. It was okay. I was hoping I was going to learn something, but actually I did learn something, that it is a lot of hard work to get the vote out, and that you do have to do everything, the door knocking, the flyering, everything we know what to do. And that the people who are successful at it are the ones who do it. And to start any campaign early. So that was pretty interesting. I was very impressed with everybody's Spanish speaking ability. Sometimes you have people who say they speak Spanish, and they really don't. And all our delegates who represented all the elected officials who were there really spoke excellent Spanish. I'm very impressed. I was also very surprised at the Chicano Latino caucus, at the way things were run, and I just echo back what Bobby Lopez said about inexperience, but there's also a lot of, there was not listening. I mean, it was clear that someone called the question or called the call for information, and it was ignored. So I was really kind of taken aback by that. So it looked like real politics. But overall it was good. And I was, today's general meeting, I thought was very interesting, very enlightening. Surprised that, you know, and I know this is a Democratic Party, this is not government in a sense, but I was surprised that such a big organization wouldn't be more organized, especially when it's been around for a long time. You know, I'm always freaking out when I've chaired meetings like, oh my God, I'm going to do it wrong. And I'm like, oh my gosh, all this self-pressure on myself when I see, you know, the big boys doing it. I'm like, oh, it's not that bad. So, but I was a bit surprised because, you know, if you know that you're going to have like 500 people coming to your meeting, you know, you'd have everything already, you know, practice runs, I would think, but that's me. Anyways, that's it. So thank you for the opportunity for speaking, but I liked it. Thank you.
Awesome. Thank you, Parola. Next up, we have Annie. Annie, tell us your experiences at this first virtual convention.
Yeah, I'm actually not an ADEM, but I attended the CYD convention. I know we haven't talked much about CYD. I understand, but
totally cool.
quick, I guess both CYD and like in general and local CYD updates. We elected a new board and new CYD officers. So Diane Lee out of San Francisco is now our CYD president. And Will Rodriguez Kennedy is no longer president. Locally here, we elected a new regional director. Victor Flores is now our CYD Bay Area regional director. And then just a fun thing to share, Katie Porter came to speak to the California College Democrats. That was great. Apparently, she keeps at least one whiteboard handy in her purse at all times because she says that she doesn't know when she needs a whiteboard. And her favorite time questioning a witness in Congress, I happened to ask her this question, was when she questioned Robert Redfield about the free, out of the CDC, about free COVID testing. But her least favorite time was questioning Ben Carson because he refused to understand the questions and did not have the vocabulary to adequately and coherently communicate answers. So that last part, not super relevant to CDP or CYD, I guess, but just fun.
Awesome. Thank you, Annie. I loved her whiteboard thing. I'm thinking about stealing that idea. It's a good one.
She
Comes in
apparently
handy.
Owns at least 5 portable, I like to refer to them as portable, you're welcome, whiteboards, along with a wall full of whiteboards at her campaign office.
Awesome. I love it. Let's see. Oh, Matthew had his hand up and now his hand isn't up. So that is the last of the hand raised. So I'm going to turn it back over to you, Carol.
Okay, thanks. I might have just messed up on his hand. Matthew, do you want to say something?
Oh, I'd wanted to ask a question.
Okay. And I think Sudia might have a question also, although I'm not sure. Okay, Matthew and then Sudia. And then then that's it, folks.
My question is, so when will we get the list of like how every delegate voted on everything, including like for officer elections, resolutions and legislation, both in committee and on the convention floor?
Does anybody know that?
Yeah,
Actually, sorry.
I know for the officer elections, that should be coming out soon based on the schedule they had. I don't know if they will ever publish how people voted on the convention floor because normally those votes aren't recorded. It's one of the downsides of the online format because when you're in person, you can look around and see who's voting for what when they raise their hand, but online you can't.
Yeah, it's not it's considered a public vote, but they're not tracking.
Where people, especially around legislation where you had to vote no to keep something on the agenda. And so there are definitely people who may have voted incorrectly or they didn't lower their hand in time and so on. So.
Okay, any other delegates out there that would like to introduce themselves?
I just wanted to maybe add to Alfred's excellent answer because Matthew also asked about resolutions. So you really have to have come to our resolutions meetings to see how folks voted in committee. But these, the final prioritization votes are actually, all of us on the committee shared the top 15 that we're going to prioritize. And I believe that part of the meeting was recorded, but the final votes will not be. The votes for candidates for office, those are public, and the votes to endorse candidates running for office are also public. So those are the two types of votes that can be made available upon request.
I have a follow-up question based on something you said. I heard a rumor or something like that they were gonna Rusty was bringing back a cap on the number of pieces of legislation that could be endorsed. Is that true? Did that happen? With something that's vaguely similar happen? Could you or somebody else elaborate on or answer that?
Solly would be the best person to answer this. I don't know if Solly is here right now, but I checked in with one of the lead co-chairs and heard that it wouldn't be Rusty. It's that someone checked in with the rules lead chair to see if there was a, back in the day when I served on the Ledge Committee, there was a cap on the number of bills you could endorse, and then the cap was lifted. But there's a question as to whether it went through the normal process to be lifted, where the rules makes a recommendation and delegates vote on it, or whether the committee just decided to do it. Ultimately, it ended up not mattering. There was no cap on the amount of bills that were endorsed this weekend.
Okay, Sudi. Unmute yourself.
Did I do it?
Now you did, yep.
Okay. This may be something purely semantic, but it's always kind of bugging me. The word progressive, you get a lot of questionnaires say, do you consider yourself a progressive? And the fact is, I consider myself a radical, not a progressive. And ever since the day when Hillary Clinton said, I'm a progressive, I thought, maybe we need a different terminology. So that was just one thing that I wanted to share. And, I don't want to maybe open up a can of worms now, but I was in a place yesterday that had a whole bunch of bumper stickers on the wall. And I always look, magnets. So I started looking at all the magnets and I saw one that really attracted me. It says, if you're not on a government watch list by now, you should be ashamed of yourself. Anyway, that's all I had to say, but I don't know if someday we can have a discussion about progressive. I mean, when I was a kid, my parents used to say they're progressives, but there weren't any Republicans or Democrats calling themselves progressives at the same time. So maybe the language has changed and maybe we just need to accept that. I'm not sure.
Okay, thank you. Or anything else anybody want to say, make an announcement or anything? And if you do, you have 30 seconds. Igor.
No, we'll get it from Igor or Carol.
Yeah, just a question on the two action alert requests that I made. What the procedure would be, or can we include that in a future ballot that might go out to membership? Or can we just, we all support defense reduction. Could we just take a vote?
How would we take a vote here tonight? Everybody do the hand wave.
Two hands.
Ask for objections.
There's going to be some session with Barbara Lee and Move On about militarism, I think on Tuesday night. I got a notice.
Okay. So everybody that wants our revolution to support that, Igor, maybe they could put a clapping hand or something in the corner right now. We'll see how many we get.
Clapping hand.
Okay,
Which is the clap? This clap?
okay, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Jake, did you have one up and you took it down? Alfred.
What's a clap? Which is the
Can we,
clap?
can we do a hand raise instead? Because clap.
We can do
doesn't hear.
anything. Just let us know on something right now. Everybody waves their hand or put something in the corner. Yay.
I think we should just ask for.
Hi there, this is Paola. I vote in favor.
Okay.
Any objections? Probably the easiest way to do this.
Yeah.
Okay, yeah. Who object?
Any-
Anybody at all object?
We left.
For the record, what specifically are we voting on, please?
You want to tell
this-
us, Igor? Exactly
Sure,
what
this-
the number is and the wording?
Yeah, this is a request, and I put the language of it in the chat, but I'm not there right now. But what it asks is for Congresswoman Lee, our Congresswoman in CD13, to really look at our $742 billion military budget and look for opportunities to reduce that budget so that we can reinvest that funding into other things. So it's signed on by a number of veterans organizations, a number of peace organizations, a number of environmental organizations all across the country.
Okay, so it's basically cut the military budget and put that money into helping turn things around.
Correct.
Yeah,
Okay, got it.
okay.
Does
Anything
anyone
else?
object? Anyone object to that? If you do, you're probably in the wrong group.
Did you have a comment, Alfred? And then Matthew?
I'm curious about what is that bomber? It looks like a bomber in the back of Gordon Miller.
It's the 1957 idea of what a Mars expedition would look like. The painting by Chesley Bonestell shows a Mars ship firing its rockets to break into orbit around Mars. At some later time, they thought a glider would work, and they'd glide down to the surface of the planet. And the front of this thing is actually the rocket that would return them to orbit, and the ship at the bottom, the small ship is also firing its rockets. That would stay in orbit, and that would get everybody back to Earth.
That's a quality answer, Gordon.
Okay,
Ominous
we
photo.
have hands up for Jake and Matthew. Go for it, either one of you first.
I was just going to say, make sure to watch the town halls. If you didn't watch them so far, they are really good. And actually, some of them had answers to questions that we have in here for the criminal justice town hall and the education town hall, which is on our YouTube and Facebook page. You can go to YouTube, just search for Our Revolution East Bay, or our Facebook page. All the links are on our website, ourrevolutioneastbay.org. Make sure you check them out.
Okay, I'd like to mention that we think our next town hall is going to be environmental justice. We haven't set a date yet. Okay, Matthew?
What's the topic? Oh, sorry. What did you say the topic would be?
Environmental
Okay,
justice.
cool.
Okay,
Awesome.
Ruskell, you have something?
Oh, wait, I had an announcement.
Oh, okay, go ahead, Matthew, and then Ruskell.
Yeah, so as folks don't remember, a couple of months ago, Our Revolution East Bay endorsed TOPA, the Tenant Opportunity to Purchase Act. What that is it basically says that whenever a landlord decides that they're going to sell their property, they have to do two things. One, they have to before they can put it on the market, they have to let the tenants in the building, or as well as community nonprofit, provide them with an offer to buy the building. And number two is that if that doesn't work out, whenever they do make an offer to somebody like an investment firm like Blackstone, Blackstone says we'll pay you $1 million. They have to give the tenants of the building as well as community nonprofits, that's the land trust, the right to buy the building for the same amount of money. So that's what TOPA does. The next TOPA is going to be heard in the Berkeley City Council Land Use Committee this Thursday at 10:30 a.m. What we need from folks is to please send letters of support for TOPA, as well, which you can do anytime before the meeting. So you could do that tonight, right now, after this meeting ends, as well as to call in during the meeting and give public comment in support. There is a sample letter, which you can also use for talking points, in the link I just provided in the chat, which is a Facebook event. So you can just find that in the Facebook event description. It'll only take you a few seconds. So please help us pass TOPA, so we can build, so we can expand community land trusts. And community land trusts were a big thing Bernie worked on in Burlington when he was mayor. This is really important for supporting them. And this is also supported by the Berkeley Tenants Union, East Bay DSA, so many organizations that I can't go into, about 3 dozen organizations, including our Revolution East Bay. Once again, all the information is in the chat.
Okay, next will be Ruskell and then Sherry.
Yeah.
Can you add me to the queue, please?
Yep, you'll be after Sherry.
Okay, thank you.
Yeah, I just wanted to share that Javanka's is holding a press conference along with East Bay DSA on May 6th at 12:30 at the Salesforce Transit Center to advocate to get more money for AC Transit. And then on May 13th, she's having a transit talk at 6, which I put in the chat, the link. And then just a quick question for Carol. I'm interested in seeking OR East Bay's support for AB 279. Do I need to send you an email about that?
Yeah, just send us a little very brief email.
Okay.
Okay, thank you.
And let's support AB 71 and 491. Thanks.
Okay. Okay. Sherry? Unmute yourself.
Yeah. I'm sure you all have read or heard or seen the tragic death of Mario Gonzalez at the hands of the Alameda police. And on May 7th, there's going to be a special city council meeting, and anyone that's kind of involved or has knowledge of defund the police, we would love to have speakers. So if you could contact me, I'll put my email in the chat. But we need people who are advocates for police reform to speak and to help us in Alameda, because we have a real problem. And thank you.
What days? On what days?
The special council meeting is May 7th.
Have you talked to the Coalition of Police Accountability here in Oakland that helped us with the town hall and also did Measure S1 and the commission, the original commission?
Yeah, that's what we're looking for. Actually, is a oversight committee for our policing in Alameda, and also the other element of that is to have like Oakland is starting to initiate a civil response team that doesn't respond to somebody who's had a little bit too much to drink by killing them.
Yeah.
So
yeah, they helped with the Measure S1, which just recently passed in 2020, and also with the original commission that was done with also Pamela Price, I think, helped out with the legislation on that too.
Yeah, Pamela's hopefully going to speak too. Anyway, it's a terrible situation in Alameda.
Yeah.
Okay,
I'd like to.
Paola, Bobby, and Amos.
Yeah, hey there. I just want to give you a heads up talking about Pamela. Pamela and Jovanka, we're going to be having a Zoom party for Pamela on May 15th. Unfortunately, I'm on the phone, so I can't drop the link to the event. But if you go to Pamela Price, the number 4 DA, Pamela Price for DA. .org. You'll come across her website, and we're on the May 15th. It's a Saturday from 11 to 1. We have Jovanka Beckles who's going to be talking. We're going to be talking about mental health because apparently the 15th is like 5150 day, and Jovanka is going to be talking about her job as a mental health professional and talking about how that mental health is also racial justice. So hopefully you guys can make it if you're interested. And it's a fundraiser for Pamela because, as you know, she's got to raise a lot of money because this is the big leagues, and she's a corporate free campaign that she's running.
Yep. Okay, Bobby.
Hi, everybody. I'll be brief, and I'll put my email in the chat if you want to reach out to me. Just real quick, I don't know if folks saw the news, but the mayor of Oakland, the law requires the mayor to release the budget by May 1st, and the mayor has refused to release the city budget and may not even release it until next weekend, which is a problem because the budget has a very short timeline to be filled and figured out and debated. And so we're trying to put pressure on her to actually release the budget so that we know what she's doing in terms of like alternatives to policing, investments in affordable housing. It's very hard to discuss the budget when you can't actually even have the physical document in front of you. And this is actually a city ordinance that requires this. It's not just me randomly say it released by May 1st. Ironically, it's an ordinance that she moved back in 2013. But regardless, I'll put my email there if you want to get involved. We're going to be doing some actions. I believe there's going to be a segment on KPFA tomorrow with a lot of different folks talking about what does this mean for the budget process to not have a transparent process.
Okay, thank you. Okay, next person, Amos. And welcome. I don't think I've met you before.
Only virtually, if that. Hi, thanks. I'm Amos White. And thank you for this. And thanks, Sherry, for raising that point in regards to the actions in regards to Mario Gonzalez. There's been a lot of actions here in Alameda. And just specifically myself, I've been organizing, not necessarily against APD, but on issues of police reform since 2017, when 45 passed his first executive order, the anti-immigration order. And we've held several town halls on police. We were successful as a city and a community through the leadership of our local group of both progressives and our seniors and ACLU People Power in getting a sanctuary city bill passed, or not bill, but resolution passed, but also in plugging holes in our current police policies. But we really have not really crossed that last mile in really getting true reform due to the lack of political will of existing council. And we do need a lot of activists, if you will, progressive voices to support the demands of the family, who are calling for an independent autopsy and who are calling for firing of those, the 3 current officers, and calling for changes now. But also, as Sherry mentioned, we did, after the Black Lives Matter protests of last year, as many of you know, 2 days before Mr. Floyd was killed at the hands of police in Minnesota, that Molly Watkins here was accosted, unlawfully detained, and unlawfully arrested here in Alameda. That's really kind of been swept under the rug very skillfully by our city government, by our city manager, and the process of justice here in Alameda County. Yes, it went to our own city, who had its own investigation. And yes, that went to the district attorney's office. And yes, they said, well, the officers were too new on the force. They needed more training. But that tends to be a rather pat response when it comes to Alameda, when it comes to such scandals. And as a Black man, and as a person who is organizing in civil rights, and organizing against, or not against, but for if you will, the reallocation of funding that's currently going to the police right now, just like with our military here nationwide. We need real reforms now, but we need political support, and we need your political support of what we had commissioned, or the people organized after the Black Lives Matter rallies, or during that all last summer. We demanded that the city convene a police oversight committee. They commissioned a committee, and they appointed subcommittees, 5 separate, that actually did their own investigations on hiring practices, protocol, budget. They looked at all of these elements, even down to potential systemic systemic racism within the department. Those reports, after 6 months of studies, those went forward to the city of Alameda City Council meeting 2 months ago in March. And they basically were just told, thank you very much for your reports and the outcomes. And none of them, for a second time, none of them were implemented, and none of those recommendations were funded. It's a travesty. It's a failure of government. I'm not one to mince my words, as Igor and others might tell you, but it's an argument that I've had of this city, that it really is more so upholding the structure of white supremacy with this silence and its polite continued debate, as opposed to making structural changes now. And the people demanded that last summer. So we do ask for your support. If you do want a copy of those 13 demands that ACLU People Power put forward, 12 of those demands were all met last year, including commissioning the police oversight committees. The 13th that wasn't met was defund the police. And Alameda has a serious problem. I saw somebody put in the chat, they used to be called the Blue Meetings. I campaigned for office this last fall. People made that reference. I didn't know that, but they did make that historical reference to the nature of this particular police department and the way it interacts with Black and brown drivers, Black and brown residents. And right now we have a man who's not going back home to his family. So it is a very sore point. I don't want to take up any more airtime or space, but this is a very impassioned plea for your help. And we have somebody asked if we're doing something or connecting with Oakland's commission. I personally reached out to, I think it's Miss Drake, Carol. I think it's Carol Drake. And
Pamela Drake.
Who is it?
Pamela Drake.
Was it Pamela Drake? Pamela's on that commission? Okay, I reached out. Yeah, sorry. I only had one espresso this morning, but I did reach out. I asked for, even for a copy of the charter that Oakland did, as we as a group, and a group we have here called Transform Alameda, or Transform APD as it initially was called. We were going to put on last fall before in July, get the requisite number of petitioners signed, or petitions signed, to actually put on the ballot a charter reform to create a police oversight commission. We really think Oakland is on the right road, has the right political community-based power, and it has a lot that we can learn from. What Alameda lacks is, if you will, a strong enough coalition base of community organizations. We don't have that kind of network here in Alameda, especially those that are organizations of color, those in SJ, EJ work, and we really would appreciate any support. So I would say, Sherry gave you her contact. Please contact her there, sherryjohansson@gmail.com. And I'll put mine in the chat if anybody wants a copy of the recommendations we put forward. I'll put that out there as well.
Okay, great. Thank you so much, Amos. Okay, guys, we did it. Almost 3 hours. We're ready now for some music. And if anybody wants to stick around for music, And we'll see you again soon. Everybody go out there and kick ass.
So this is, I will do 1.5 songs. And the first one, it connects to Bernie's always saying that the banks are too powerful. And this is a song called Banks of Marble. It's also about